It's 11 minutes past 7. Let's talk here on Sunday Breakfast about West Yorkshire's Sikh community hosting a government consultation on hate crime and bullying this coming week. It's been organised by the Sikh Alliance Yorkshire and will include delegates from the police, safety groups and anti-hate crime campaigners. Well, men and women who follow Sikhism are being invited to tell their stories and to talk about how they're being affected by Islamophobia. Well, the event will take place, this is on Tuesday, at the Khalsa Science Academy in Leeds. Dr Jasjit Singh is one of the speakers, and he is the gentleman with the beard I've just referred to, who's come in, probably driven bunch before.
I have driven,
hold your horses before you start taking pot shots, you see.
And I'm quite near 50 as well, actually, so...
There we are. Jasjit, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
Likewise, Andrew.
So why have you decided to hold this consultation? It implies that Sikhs in West Yorkshire are having problems.
Well, Sikhs, all over the world are having problems, but it's something that's generally underreported for a number of reasons. So, most Sikhs I've spoken to over the years have faced some issues. They've experienced some kinds of hate crime. So for instance, post 9/11, most Sikhs have been called Bin Laden. Most turban wearing Sikhs have anyway. Lots of Sikh kids in schools face issues as well. So it's something that's definitely out there, but there's been a sense of underreporting over the years, which and we're trying to get people to articulate what issues they faced and why they've underreported.
And when you say underreporting, could it be, though, that people did not want, in a sense, to draw further attention to themselves and thought, right, let's just hope this might be over, so I'm not going to make a big deal of it?
Yeah, certainly, Andrew. So I think, growing up in the 70s and 80s, facing racism, facing, slurs and the like, people probably just thought it was part of life and, just kind of get on with it. But after certain incidents, it seems to intensify. So as I say, post 9/11, post 7/7, certainly post the Brexit vote as well. People have kind of told me that they've been called things that they hadn't been called before. So it's just a case of actually understanding what issues have been faced, and also obviously that there were the arson attacks in Leeds last June. It was when the Gurdwara in Beeston and the mosque in Beeston were subjected to arson attacks. So there have been instances in the UK as well of. So what about you then, as a turban-wearing Sikh sitting opposite me as a dad I know as well? Just day to day. Day to day. So as I say, I've been called Bin Laden. People have shouted that across the street. My son wears a small turban at school. His school's been great, but he's attended a few football camps, for instance, where he's faced issues and people have kind of said things to him which I've had to have a conversation with him about before he's actually entered a particular context. So it's not something that happens a lot all the time, but it does happen, and it has led to violence in certain instances, not on me personally, but to certain Sikhs at certain times.
I'm very struck. This is the second weekend running we've talked about Sikhs, and last week it was the issue of the kirpan.
Yes,
a number of people feeling, and there were some people, I think, last weekend when this conversation was going on. So just very quickly, I know it's a different debate, but I think it's quite interesting. I think it relates to this. Yeah. Just explain very quickly what the kirpan is and why carrying of it, wearing of it is a big deal.
So the kirpan is a symbol of defence. It's a symbol. It's a reminder that a Sikh should stand up for those who are unable to stand up for themselves, and that's basically it. And it emerged in a context where Sikhs were being persecuted, and also other minorities were as well. And Sikhs were kind of given this role to ensure that they didn't just sit back and watch things happen. They had to make sure that they stood up for injustice and equality.
So as we sit here today, there is an exemption, which meant if I were, for example, to go into a public venue to see a concert tonight and I was carrying a small knife, I wouldn't be allowed to do that, but you would be, because as a Sikh,
not just as a Sikh, if I was an initiated Sikh who'd kind of gone through the whole process of initiation and was also wearing all the other symbols, including the long hair, the turban. So it wouldn't just be any old person who. So who could do
I suppose the reason I mentioned that is some people who are not Sikhs clearly, or may not be people of faith, find it a bit puzzling. Well, just leave the dagger, or why make a big deal of this? Aren't you drawing more attention to something? Because you're essentially saying, we're not Sikhs. This is Islamophobia that's going on, but we're not Muslims, so therefore why should we? What about that point? That it's almost in a sense focusing that on it.
So the kirpan's only really been an issue since metal detectors kind of came into place, because before then Sikhs were wearing them for years really. And it isn't something that's really ever hit the headlines at all. There have been very few cases of it actually being an issue of which has necessarily needed to be reported. Whereas We've had the issues in Beeston last year. There was a attack on a Gurdwara in Edinburgh in August last year as well. There was a Sikh from Leeds was attacked in a Tesco in Wales by a white supremacists. So, there have actually been physical attacks against... There have been more physical attacks against Sikhs than there have been of Sikhs attacking others.
So that is why we've got an awareness event this week, which we'll talk about now on Tuesday at the Khalsa Science Academy in Leeds. I'm Andrew Edwards. This is BBC Radio Leeds. Welcome to our Sunday breakfast show together. Dr Jasjit Singh is with you this morning. He's one of the speakers at this event on Tuesday. So this is part of a sort of wider feeding in of information, is it? So do you feed back to the government, or do the government want to get information from you about what's happening, or is it a bit of both?
A bit of both, Andrew. So I did a research project last year where I did a research, some research. I developed some findings, and I went out to the community to discuss these findings with them, because I didn't just want to, as an academic, just publish something and say this is the way things are. And I found the process of consultation really, really helpful. There's so much knowledge amongst the community which could feed back into my research as well. That was the first event which happened in, I think it was late 2018, and then late 2017, and then since then we held a consultation on mental health last year in June. And got
which we talked about on the show, actually.
Absolutely. Got to talk about mental health. Again, something that they hadn't really discussed in any kind of venue before then. So this is the third of these kind of consultations where we're basically getting, and it's twofold, we're allowing policymakers to talk to the community, which kind of challenges the whole idea of a community leader, which has often been the model used before, where people talk to one person and get one perspective. This is actually getting everyone in a room and saying, okay, these are different points of view. So,
and I might have a different view from you, from that person,
exactly.
From
and people get to learn what different views are. So you've got policymakers who can hear from the community, and you can get community to actually hear from policymakers directly and answer questions of them as well. So it's a kind of two-way. Both policymakers get some information from the community about it, and the community can actually see who's out there, and in this case, for instance, how to report, what facilities are actually out there, because there's so much information out there these days. It's not often clear where to go to actually tell somebody something. So we're hoping it's more of a dialogue. So say Sikh Alliance Yorkshire are more of a facilitation organisation where we use our various contacts to get people in, and then we can get the community to talk to them, and vice versa.
Let me just ask you finally, Sikhism, in terms of the number of people in this country, is a small faith relatively, isn't it?
It is. I think it's about fourth on the leaderboard. There are just about a few more Sikhs than Jews in the country world, sort of nationally. There are about 7,000 in Leeds and about 5,000 in Bradford, and about 425,000 nationally. So, and
you mentioned right at the start the whole Osama bin Laden thing, the wearing of a head covering for blokes. You mentioned some of what your little lad has been encountering, football camps and all the rest of it. Is this partly as well about being recognised as a distinct group, rather than some people through ignorance or perhaps through hatred, and you've talked about that, and just saying, look, this is a person with a brown skin, they seem to wear a turban, I'll just make some generalised decision about them.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the whole point of the turban itself and the whole point of its identity was to stand out as somebody that people could rely upon for help. So the standing out part of it is part of the identity anyway, and it's not something that we can kind of lose, because that's kind of what it means to be a Sikh. It means to be confident enough to stand out and say that you're going to be there to assist if necessary. And of course, so some people will just make 2 and 2 equals 5, but then we're not here to put other communities down. We're not saying, we're not one of those, so don't attack us. It's a case of actually ensuring that sort of thing doesn't happen at all, really. And hopefully this event on Tuesday will allow people to articulate and understand the best way to move forward.
So finally, where and what are you asking people? Where is it? What are the times?
So where is it? It's at Khalsa Science Academy up in North Leeds, just off Harrogate Road. It starts at 6 o'clock, 6 till 8 on Tuesday, and we're just asking people to bring along their experiences and talk about them openly.
Been very nice to see you this morning.
Likewise.
I'm sorry to get you up early, but you now have a bonus amount of Sunday left.
Absolutely,
Look on the bright side. So there
Thanks
we are.
very much.
Very good to see you. Dr Jasjit Singh with you on BBC Radio Leeds.